What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the No Fun League. Today, we are going to be breaking down all of the news that's happened in the NFL this week. It's only Tuesday, and we're already cooking with news. A lot has happened. A lot is still happening. Teams are still firing people. Teams are asking for interview requests. There's a lot going on. There's also 7 playoff games this week. Two, three, 6 playoff games this week. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to discuss, and let's get right into it. Number one, the New England Patriots fired head coach Gerard Mayo after just one season. He obviously did not have the best season. You know, they have the fourth overall pick. They did not have the success that I guess ownership thought that they should have had. At the same time, rookie quarterback, not a great roster by any means, and I think he got a lot out of that roster. Now, there was an article that came out today in The Athletic that talked about other off field issues being at play, especially moments in press conferences, where that's fair, you know, calling your team soft in front of the national media. Maybe not the best play, but that team, you know, there's a lot of other issues there besides just Coach Mayo. And I think in large part this firing happened because Mike Rabel's available. And Mike Rabel is a Patriots legend. He has won Super Bowls with them. He is another guy that's part of the glory days with Brady and Belichick. And has already proven himself to be a very, very good head coach in the NFL. We'll talk about his former team, the Titans, in a second because they seem to be another dumpster fire in the making. But, you know, I think if Mike Rabel isn't available, if there isn't this many good head coaches available, maybe the Patriots stick it out another year with Mayo. But, you know, I feel really bad for him because obviously it's your first year as a head coach in the NFL. You're the groomed successor to Bill Belichick. It's not an easy job. We saw a similar thing happen to Alabama with Kalen DeBoer, another guy who he is, you know, he took Washington to the national championship last year, but this is Alabama's worst season in a really long time as well because it's really hard to replace goats, not just, you know, in media like representing the franchise, but also talking to the players because even at Bama, guys like Milrow and other players, and especially in New England, like all of these people are used to being coached by Bill Belichick. Like it's going to be hard to come in and kind of replace that. Um, Moving on, another huge news item from Sunday. Tyreek Hill basically said that he's done in Miami. He asked for a trade. Yesterday, he changed his Twitter profile to his face on Antonio Brown's body when he was leaving. And quite frankly, that was really funny. But Tyreek Hill wants to leave. It's a massive contract with a massive cap hit. So moving it is going to be a challenge for not only the Dolphins, but the team that agrees to take him as well. And it's definitely going to be a point of negotiation. There's obviously teams that could use him and that could, you know, make a lot of sense. Legitimately, I think a team like Green Bay would be a great fit for him because they have a bunch of wide receiver twos. Don't really have a standout guy, and I think Tyreek has a couple of those years still left in him, and they would not mind trading for him in the offseason if something can be done with that contract. And I think it would be really interesting. Even a team like New England, given depending on who gets hired as the next head coach, could be an interesting fit to pair him with a young quarterback who you think can be the franchise guy. A lot of options there. Moving on, the Jacksonville Jaguars, another organization that I think is fair to say is a clown show, and their fans certainly think so. They fired Doug Peterson, which makes sense. Didn't have a good season. You know, they make the playoffs in year one, I believe. Last season, a little bit of a setback. They were the number one seed until Trevor Lawrence got hurt. This year was a complete shit show for that team. But somehow, Trent Baalke still has a job in the NFL. I don't understand this whatsoever. I made a separate video yesterday talking about this because it is so alarming to me. Not only is he the guy that ran Harbaugh out of San Francisco after he had taken them to the NFC Championship twice, and the Super Bowl once. Not only is he the guy that was part of the brain trust in hiring Urban Meyer to coach an NFL team, which I think anybody could have guessed would have turned out the way it did, given what we knew about Urban Meyer beforehand, and especially what we know after, and has made peculiar decisions in free agency with the Jacksonville Jaguars under his tenure. Some of them have worked out. Everybody made fun of the Christian Kirk contract. That worked out. He has been very good. Other signings, not so much. Now, I will say some of the decisions in the draft, Brian Thomas is looking pretty good. Everybody made fun of that Trayvon Walker pick because Aiden Hutchinson started off his career so well, but Trayvon Walker has put together two really good seasons back to back, so he's been a good pick. So Baalke gets some credit for drafting, but that team is going nowhere under him. You're not going to get a guy like Ben Johnson to come to Jacksonville if Trent Baalke's the GM. And to make it even worse, the owner of the team, Shad Khan, on a Zoom call with Trent Baalke, told reporters that, yeah, if the new coach wants me to fire Trent, I'll fire Trent. What the fuck are you doing? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. Moving on to other teams that make no sense, my New York Football Giants. You see the Giants football up there. Huge Giants fan. I might disown that team. Now, that football is signed by Daniel Jones. He's also not on the team anymore, so, like, that football is good. But yeah, you keep Joe Schoen, you keep Brian Daboll, fine. At least you didn't fire Daboll and keep Schoen because that would have been the worst option possible. However, John Mara then goes to his press conference afterwards and lists all of the reasons why they should have been fired. It's like, I want to be patient with them. Like, he couldn't even bring himself to say that they're going in the right direction because they're not. They've gone down in wins every single season. The roster is nowhere near competitive to the top of the NFC. And next season, you're going to have the highest strength of schedule. They have the hardest schedule in the NFL next season with this roster, with no quarterback. Now, there'll be further videos about the Giants in particular, about what I think they should do in the offseason, because I'm a Giants fan. But this team, unless barring something incredibly unforeseen, which would make me very happy, this team is not going to do shit next season. And the one thing that made me a little happy yesterday is that Joe Schoen in his press conference made it a point to say that he would not make rash decisions just to keep his job. Now, we'll see if that actually plays out in theory, because Gettleman and Jerry Reese definitely made rash decisions to try to keep their job and failed, which failed the franchise even more. But we'll see what's happening. Now, moving on to some head coaching searches. The Bears are interviewing both Lions coordinators alongside a bunch of other names that I think it's good. For a team like the Bears, you got to have as wide of a search as possible, and that's what they're doing. I think Ryan Poles has done a very good job building that team. I think you want to get an offensive guy in there and coach them up. You want a guy to get in there and motivate Caleb and coach him up. And Ryan Poles' job is just to protect Caleb Williams, because towards the end of the season, you could see Caleb Williams absolutely losing confidence and not having fun playing football because he was getting hit so much, which is fair. The Jets are interviewing Rex Ryan today, I believe. Today's Tuesday. I believe they're interviewing Rex Ryan today. They're also interviewing Aaron Glenn. They did not put in an interview request for Ben Johnson, the most valuable commodity in the head coaching market this season, because they don't think Ben Johnson wants to come there, which is fair, because who would want to work with Woody Johnson? The Bengals fired their defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, that's a wild one. It's well-deserved because obviously Trey Hendrickson had 17.5 sacks. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow had incredible seasons, and that team didn't do anything. So, or in the playoffs, you know what I mean. So it makes sense. He is the fall guy because the defense is the unit that let them down. But Lou Anarumo is a very, very good head coach, and I believe personnel failed him in that regard this season. You lose Von Bell, Jesse Bates, your corners are getting hurt. There's only so much that a scheme can do, and Trey Hendrickson still had a phenomenal season. I think he should get a job immediately with another team. Realistically, if I'm the Giants, I fire Shane Bowen and I try to get Lou Anarumo. He's from Jersey. I think that would make that team much better because Shane Bowen was a shitty defensive coordinator. And then breaking news that we had this morning as of 10 minutes ago, the Titans have fired their GM, Ran Carthon, which, once again, incredibly peculiar. We're going to add the Titans to the Jags and Giants category now of clusterfucks, because you fire your old GM, I forget his name, John Robinson maybe? You fire him, fine. The Tannehill era was over. The Derrick Henry era was over, or was getting over. Okay, cool. Then you keep Rabel. You hire Ran Carthon. Then the next season you fire Rabel and say Ran Carthon's in charge now. Rand Carthon hires this guy, Brian Callahan. Now, Brian Callahan is still on the team, and you fire Rand Carthon, and now you're looking for a new GM. I don't know what Amy Adams Strunk is doing, but whatever it is, it ain't good. Like, what are you doing with your franchise? It's a problem with owners where at times they're too patient, and at times they're so impulsive they think that, they're going to get an immediate fix of everything if they just fire someone and hire someone else. Like, that's not how it works. If we see organizations like the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Bills, they had troubling seasons in the beginning and they stayed patient and let the people that they hired do their jobs until it mattered and until they could see the difference. That's what you saw in Detroit with Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. Now, on the flip side, teams like the Jags and the Giants, they're too patient. And this is just a problem with NFL ownership and a problem that is probably with every single owner across the realm of sports because they, quite frankly, just had the money to buy the team. Most of them have no clue what they're doing whatsoever, and they should let football people make the decisions, which is kind of what the Lions have done, which is why they've had so much success. And I think other teams should try to follow that model and not be so involved in their team, right? You don't want to be Jerry Jones. Now, Jerry Jones saying that when I bought the team, I basically got myself a job as a GM is completely valid. If I ever had the money to buy an NFL team, I would be GM of that motherfucker immediately. At the same time, maybe not the right thing to do. Maybe not the right thing to do. And then before we get out of here, I want to talk about some of my best fits for coaches and talk about where I think the award season is going to end up and what my awards predictions are, or not necessarily predictions, but how I would give these awards out. Talking about head coaches, I 100% don't know exactly what's going to happen. Everything is so up in the air especially for a job like the Jags or the Jets, where there's so much else going on within the organization. That would make the job less appealing. I think it's going to be really hard to predict which people want to take that job and which people don't. But just off rip, given who people are interviewing, given what's happening, this is what I think should happen as of right now. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think getting Ben Johnson is going to be very unlikely if Trent Baalke is still employed come the start of next season. However, if Shad Khan is willing to fire Trent Baalke to get Ben Johnson, then Ben Johnson would be the best choice for the Jacksonville Jaguars because you have so many cool pieces on offense. And Ben Johnson, with that creativity, would make that offense so much better. You have Trevor Lawrence, who I still believe is a franchise quarterback and a really good quarterback. I think he has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. You get Ben Johnson to work with Trevor, Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne. You still got Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas Jr. You signed Gabe Davis. Evan Engram's a pretty good athletic tight end. Like, they're not as great as the Lions' weapons, but you have 2 really good running backs. You have a pretty good tight end, and you have interesting receivers. There's a lot that Ben Johnson could do with the personnel that the Jaguars have. And if I'm the Jaguars, defensively, you have some good pieces, but you got to invest more on that side of the ball. And Ben Johnson can either get an experienced defensive coordinator, he can keep their current one. I believe it's Ryan Nielsen, who's a pretty good DC. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do to improve defensively, but Ben Johnson taking control of the offense would immediately make him so much better. So I think Ben Johnson should be their number one choice, and I think Shad Khan should fire Trent Baalke to get it done. If they can't do that, or if he doesn't fire Baalke, I think Liam Cohen is easily the next best solution. He is the offensive coordinator for the Bucs. He was the offensive coordinator for the Rams prior to that. Has been at Kentucky a couple times as well, back and forth between the Rams. Another really intriguing guy who's going to be a first-time head coach if he gets hired or when he gets hired. They're slated to interview him. And the job that he's done with Baker Mayfield, how great the Tampa Bay offense is, I think he would be another really intriguing guy to come into one of these teams to fix that offense and just kind of let the defense, hire someone. I think just in general, my philosophy on when a first-time offensive head coach gets hired is you got to do what the Rams did with Sean McVay when he first got hired at the age of 30. They hired Wade Phillips to be the defensive coordinator, and Wade Phillips was like 70. And it's just like you independently let him run the defense because he knows what he's doing and it's going to work. And I think that's kind of the thing that they should do with first time offensive head coaches, just to alleviate some of the pressure that comes with being a first time head coach. Moving on to the Bears. Now, I had a conversation with my friends about this when we found out that the Bears want to interview Mike McCarthy, where at first I'm like, Caleb should ask for a trade. This is horrible. But then, we talked about it and they're like, Mike McCarthy's done a pretty decent job developing quarterbacks. And that's true. And Mike McCarthy has also just fixed organizations in a way. Like the Dallas Cowboys will always be a chaotic mess because of who their owner is. But compared to the Jason Garrett years, the Dallas Cowboys have been pretty damn good under Mike McCarthy. The only seasons where they haven't made the playoffs are the seasons where Dak misses like half the season, which is fair because he's your starting quarterback. Mike McCarthy is a very intriguing hire for the Bears because you can help him. He can help develop Caleb. He'll get the running game going a little bit because they have good running backs. You have intriguing receiving options. And then defensively, he'll hire someone who's been pretty good at hiring DCs. Dan Quinn was a great DC hire. So I think Mike McCarthy is an intriguing choice. Obviously, Ben Johnson, just same thing with the Jags. You have a quarterback that has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. That should make things intriguing for Ben Johnson. And then Mike Vrabel as well for the Bears because, he's just a culture setter. And that team needs a culture reshift in the worst way possible. I think him and Ryan Poles would get along really well too and have a good working relationship. I think Mike Vrabel would also be a great hire in the city of Chicago to get things going again because that team, unfortunately, is up there for some of the most cursed random things you see happen to a football team ever. So I think Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson, obviously, and Mike McCarthy would be my 3 choices for the Bears. Of those, best fit, probably McCarthy because he's developed quarterbacks and coming from the offensive side and experienced head coach, leader of men, which Ryan Poles emphasized. But I think Vrabel is also an intriguing choice. However, I think Mike Vrabel is going to go to the New England Patriots for the simple reason that there's just so much. Not only is there so much nostalgia and just emotional and personal connections involved in that, at the same time you get to coach Drake May, you have a top 4 pick, and you have $100 million to spend in free agency if you so choose. And since they don't really have an official GM, like Elliott Wolf has a couple titles, official GM is not one of them. Mike Vrabel will probably have a lot of power to do things in that organization given his relationship with the Kraft family. I think Mike Vrabel should want to go to New England, and I think New England definitely wants Mike Vrabel, as we talked about earlier. So I think that one's a shoo-in. And if somehow they don't get Mike Vrabel, I think it means that they got Ben Johnson. Because I think Ben Johnson would also want to work with Drake May. The thing is, does he want to deal with the Krafts and that ownership group? If there's a theme here, Ben Johnson has been rumored for every single job, and I've said that he would be a good fit for every single job because Ben Johnson is that guy yet again in the coaching market. Moving on to the Saints, once again, one name that I think would be the best fit here, Aaron Glenn, will be a first-time head coach, but I think we saw it, and I forget who said it the next day, but what he did to the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday Night Football in the most important regular season game of the year should be his job interview. He should not have to answer a single thing. Now, about his play calling and philosophy, that should have gotten him a job. The Saints have been rumored to really like Aaron Glenn, and I think he would be a really good choice for that team. Seems like a guy that will bring in a good culture. Offensively, you hire a young offensive guy, maybe bring someone from Detroit or someone else that you interview. But I think he would be a phenomenal hire, and there's intriguing players on the Saints defense that he would love to work with. And then, last but not least, the New York Jets, probably least to about appeal for his job. Don't have a quarterback, don't have a lot of money, kind of shortchanged a lot of your resources on the Aaron Rodgers move. However, you have really good young players still. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. Defensively, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, Quincy Williams. You still have so many good players on that team. Now, some of them, I think, are getting are getting a little jaded. DJ Reed is probably going to leave in free agency given his recent comments. Garrett Wilson might ask for a trade. So a lot of that will have to get sorted out, but the head coach can save that. Three choices. The three guys that I think make the most sense are Brian Flores, Vance Joseph, and Rex Ryan. Now, Rex Ryan becoming the head coach of the Jets in 2024 would simultaneously be hilarious and full circle and the most Jets thing of all time, which is why I want it to happen. At the same time, I think it makes a lot of sense for that team. This is a guy that's going to be no bullshit. He's going to come in. He has already worked with Woody Johnson before, so like he can deal with Woody Johnson. Most people can't. Woody Johnson's a bit of an asshole as well. But he can come in, he'll get his quarterback, he'll hire young offensive guys to, handle the offense. And I think he can wreak havoc with the personnel that they have on defense. And I think genuinely he could be the answer that the Jets need to get shit going again because he already fixed them once and took them to 2 straight AFC championships. He's the only guy that the Jets have had success with in like the last 2 decades. Ryan Fitzpatrick had one good season in like 2015, but other than that, the Jets have been dumpster fire since I've been alive. And then Brian Flores, I think, once again, a guy that can come in and fix the culture and a defensive-minded guy, because I think defensive-minded coaches will be more likely to accept a Jets job right now because of the personnel that they have on defense and given the issues at quarterback. But very excited. And then obviously I think they're going to have to hire their GM first and then coach after. But we'll see what happens. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to try to it might not be 21 minutes. It might be longer. It might be shorter. But I'm going to try to do a recap every single day. And then we're also going to have to talk about these awesome football games that we have coming up this weekend. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Peace.